You got it tough as a football fan around here. This time of year, especially, you'll hear from Art Rooney the one time he talks all year. You'll hear from Mike Tomlin the one time he talks over like a 4-month span. And you'll hear from Omar Khan the first time he's talked since last summer. And from that, you're supposed to figure out everything that's going on. Good afternoon to you. Good Tuesday afternoon. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the new Double Shot show that comes your way every weekday afternoon. And this is that day that Khan speaks. He did so this morning in Indianapolis at the opening of the NFL Scouting Combine, meeting with reporters who cover the team regularly, including our own Chris Halleck, who's out there. And a little bit of news. I don't know that it was extensive. He said that he's going to tender Jaylen Warren with a contract as a restricted free agent because, of course, he is. He did say that Broderick Jones is going to move to left tackle. That's something. And as far as the quarterbacks go, as far as Justin Fields and Russell Wilson go, well, just hear it from the man himself.
The reality is last year we went into this understanding that we had 3 quarterbacks in the last year of their deal. Here we are until we get one of those guys or 2 of those guys or some combination of them signed up. All options are on the table. Had conversations with both Russ's people and Justin's representatives. And, with that, we'll see where it goes.
Now, of course, every syllable of that's going to get parsed into eternity because there's a whole lot of time between now and the next time you hear from the GM. It really shouldn't be. There's nothing there. There's nothing of substance there. Omar went into that session knowing that would be the first issue. In fact, what you saw there was Omar speaking before he even opened it up to questions. That's how sure he was of this. From there, he was asked other questions about the quarterback situation and just kept repeating the same phrases you heard there. There isn't any sort of outright public commitment to either guy. Of course, that's where reporting comes into play. And that's why I've been sharing with you stuff that I've been told definitively by real people who have a real voice in that organization about how much they'd like to keep Justin. What they can't do, though, if you think about it, they can't say, Justin's our guy. We absolutely want Justin. Justin is the guy we're going to target. And then Justin says, well, or Justin's agent talks him into, we're going to hit the open market no matter what. Okay, we're at least going to see what somebody might do. We're going to see if, who knows, the Jets or somebody will step up and say, here's $50 million a year, Justin, because we love you. And I'm making that up. Don't take me seriously, okay? But all it takes is one. All it takes is one. And in that event, the Steelers would be left standing there with egg on their faces, and maybe not even just in the figurative sense. They'd be beyond embarrassed because now they would go to Russell Wilson and say, Russ, remember how you said you wanted to come back? Well, we don't really have anybody else. And Justin didn't want to play for us anymore. So, you see, you can't do that. You can't do that. So there's nothing really to take from what he said today. There just isn't. Not in any direction. Not in the Justin direction. Not in the Russ direction. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by Chris out in Indianapolis.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
As promised, joined now by our reporter on the scene, Chris Halleck. He's in Indianapolis, specifically at the convention center that is attached not only to Lucas Oil Stadium, but to the entire downtown. This thing is a monstrosity and a half, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. So just to go talk to Omar Khan this morning, we had to walk like all the reporters went and walked to another hotel that's just completely separate from where we're working. And we didn't even have to go outside to get there. No,
you never go outside there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can walk for miles in that
Yeah.
thing. It's all connected to the hotels that are in the heart of, it's a small downtown, but you can get around it without ever having to set foot outside on a sidewalk. Chris, when we're looking at Omar's words today, I already went over the quarterback thing. Obviously, nothing came of that.
No.
What about Broderick Jones being at left tackle?
Yeah, so I asked Omar Khan about that this morning because, last year, whenever he addressed reporters at the Combine, he said that Broderick Jones was drafted to be their left tackle eventually. And so obviously Dan Moore was, blocking that, because he was the incumbent guy and he was a 4th-round pick that turned into, an average left tackle. And, there was a guy who was already there kind of in the way. And so, but this year I'm like, well, that guy's not there anymore. So what's the deal? And he said it's safe to assume that he's going to be the left tackle in 2025. And I wanted to get clarification on that because it looked like Troy Fautanu was going to be the right tackle. And so it's just like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure we were already pretty sure that Dan Moore wasn't coming back. We just wanted to make sure that the plan was to make sure that Broderick is going to stay on the left side. And that's what looks like it's going to happen.
So when you look at the offensive line, because the ripple effect obviously doesn't affect Fautanu, presuming it went in that direction. For all we know, Fautanu would have been designated the right tackle beforehand, and then they say, all right, we're just going to move Broad to the other side. Mm-hmm. This team still needs to add arguably 2 offensive linemen, even if they aren't starters. You'd want them to be competing for starting jobs, but you're talking about a swing tackle, someone to be able to back up either side, especially the left side.
Yeah.
And you'd probably be looking for a right guard to either push or supplant Mason McCormick. Am I missing something there?
No, I don't think you're missing anything. The swing tackle, you definitely have to have that. They don't have one on the roster, at least not one that's really serviceable, where if Jones or Fautanu were to go down with an injury, that the guy who's going to be taking their place would actually – where you wouldn't be panicking pretty much if that guy took the field. They don't have that guy right now. When it comes to Mason McCormick, I was a little interested to see if Omar had anything to say about him, and he had a very ringing endorsement of the way Mason played. Now, he, kind of, admitted that there were some bumps, but that's to be expected of a 4th-round pick out of South Dakota State, an FCS school.
A rookie,
so, yeah. Especially being a 4th-round pick. It's not like this guy came in as a 1st or 2nd rounder. He was a 4th-round pick. He wasn't supposed to start. They were supposed to have James Daniels, but once he went down with an injury, that kind of was the end of that. So they could bring in another guy. You could look at a reunion possibly with Nate Herbig, a guy who can start games, but who can also be a quality backup if he ever has to go in.
And you always want to have somebody with backup center capabilities as well, too. And Herbig brings you that as well. Omar also talked about George Pickens. And what were your impressions of what he said about George and the Steelers' commitment to George?
Well, the one thing that he said was that George wants to be great here. And when he's saying here, he means Pittsburgh. And he also said, we want him to be great here, meaning in Pittsburgh. And so that, to me, at least says that they're not going to be looking to just trade him as soon as they possibly can, that they're going to try to figure this out, possibly try to knock out a potential contract extension. I don't know what that would look like right now, though. But it's also February. A lot can change between now and then. It depends on what they get in a trade. It depends on what they draft. Now, it's not the most, let me put it this way when it comes to receiver. Omar Khan said a lot of good things about a lot of positions in the draft, running back, defensive tackle, cornerback, never mentioned receiver. And he mentioned specific. And so that just kind of goes to show maybe what he thinks of the receivers in this class. Not saying that there can't be a good one there, but overall, in terms of strength of position, receiver just doesn't measure up to the rest. So you might have to at least entertain the idea of extending George Pickens.
Look what you're doing to me here. I think Who has a better chance of getting a second NFL contract, you or George? Let's get real here. How's your route running of late?
It's been a while. I think I was a freshman in high school the last time I was actually running real routes.
Here comes my cynical side, okay?
Yeah.
George, you're not giving George a second contract. You know what you're doing? I'm just going to call this like it is. You're playing him. What you're doing is you're saying, listen, you stay with us. You've got a contract year coming up. You perform at your very peak. You behave. And at the end of the year, we'll talk about paying you.
It's very possible.
And, right? You see what I'm saying? And then you find a way to have him behave and focus and maybe block for somebody and everything else. And all right, well, and then if he does that, and being, not as cynical here, if he does that, if he shows some sort of, maturation, mental growth spurt or something, well, then you say, all right, let's sit down and actually talk. But this idea that they're going in with some preconceived notion about keeping him here in the long term, and that they'd be using that as cover for not taking a wide receiver in the draft. To me, the wide receiver position in the draft, Chris, is like, it's like when you get done shopping at the grocery store and you're at the register and you look, you know what I mean? And they put all that stuff there, the candy at the aisle, all the stuff you hadn't thought about as you were passing through the place. And you go, oh man, I'm going to get some of this. That's what the wide receiver is. You're there. You're already in the store. They have 1 million of them. Just get one.
Oh yeah, they could definitely take one in this draft, and there's no reason to believe that player or any receiver in this draft is incapable of becoming a legitimate player, a really good player in this league. It's just the overall strength of the position in the class. Let me put it this way: there are no surefire stars like there are at defensive tackle or at running back. Like, you're not going to see a guy taken in the top 5 where you're like, okay, that dude's going to become an all-pro type receiver. Like, this class just doesn't have those type of guys. They have a lot of, guys who could become really good number 2s. You want to get a really good number 2. This could be the draft to do it, and you could do it on day 2 of the draft possibly. But it's not that type of class in which you're going to be looking for a legitimate number 1 guy who you could just supplant George Pickens with no questions asked.
And I mentioned to our audience that this is the first time that Omar has spoken since, my goodness,
training camp.
Last training camp. That's the old Steelers policy about when the GM speaks, they want all of their stuff to come from one voice during the season. So it's all Mike Tomlin. Omar's mood in general regarding the collapse, what did you sense from him?
He said that can't happen again. That was the one line.
Well, that's uplifting.
Yeah, I mean, he just... That was the one line that he said, the one thing that he said that really kind of stuck out to me, where he was just like, obviously we're not satisfied with that performance, with that collapse. And then he just kind of paused and was just like, that can't happen again. And we're going to do what we can during this offseason to make sure that doesn't happen again. Now, actions speak louder than words. You have to actually go out and get a quarterback. You have to actually go out and add a receiver, add a cornerback in free agency, draft at least one running back in a really strong draft for running backs, draft at least one defensive tackle in a really strong draft for defensive tackles. Make sure that teams don't run for 299 yards on you again. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that actually has to change before anybody really kind of believes it. That's where they are right now. So they have a lot of work ahead of them. And Omar, that was kind of the mood that I got from him. It wasn't like Mr. Optimism like it kind of was a couple of years ago. It was more, I've got a job to do. I'm going to talk to you guys, but then I got to go to work. I got work to do.
I got work to do. Want to know who else is happy that he has work to do? Look at Chris, everybody. Somebody from the Steelers talked today. There's actual news today. He's feeling it. He's on the road. He's like, I love it. When do we come back? J1Q.
Safety is a habit, Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Time now for today's J1Q. That stands for just one question. And for that, we go next door to Ohio.
Hey, DK. Dave Black, Hartville, Ohio. Love your show. Listen to it every day. It's Combine week, so everybody's looking to the 2025 season. And certainly the offensive side of the ball needs to get a few things done, certainly quarterback position. I'm still a little bit stuck in a recent past with that 5-game skid and 299 yards given up on the ground. What's it going to take the Steelers to improve the defense to address that shortcomings? Merely add some players through free agency and a draft? Or does that have more to do with the game planning and the schematics of the personnel? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you.
You know, before I even answer, Dave, one of the funny things is how casually everybody, yourself included, and I'm no exception, can cite the 299 yards. Like, if the Ravens had just picked up one more yard, it wouldn't have felt so painful, because then it would have just been, well, they ran for 300 yards. It wouldn't seem like but everyone can say 299 because there was at least that 1 yard that the Steelers were able to hold them back from hitting that threshold. I think the answer actually is so multi-layered and multifold, but the biggest part of it, Dave, if I had to pick one, it would be finding a way to make that defensive line make more sense. I keep using this example, and it's for a reason, of how Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt worked together when they were out there as a duo. I'm going to stress that it was as a duo because there wasn't a third party more often than not. They were just game wreckers in addition to stopping the run. Like, stopping the run was just kind of well, yeah, of course we're going to stop the run. There's no big deal to that. But they could also do everything else and cause all this mayhem and get to the quarterback and disrupt things that might have been going on in the backfield. That doesn't exist right now for this team. I don't think you're getting it from Larry Ogunjobi. I don't think, as I've said many times now, the Steelers have correctly cast Keanu Benton. And I do think that you've got a draft coming up where pretty much every NFL team has stars in its eyes over the defensive linemen that are available. The Steelers cannot be an exception to that. If they can bring in, here it comes, the next Cam or the next Steph, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I as much as I'd love to see a wide receiver, me selfishly, I could live with getting somebody who'd be up front there and trying to go about it in that direction. Attack from the defensive side, strengthen the defensive side, set up who's going to be the one who inherits the Cam role for years to come. That'd be great. Be great. But ultimately, it's got to be everybody, and it does have to be schematics too, and it has to be all of your inside linebackers, not just Elandon Roberts. Elandon is an outstanding run stopper. I don't know that you could say the same this season for Patrick Queen. I don't know that you could say the same, really for the team as a whole. Other than Deshaun Elliott when he came up close to the line of scrimmage, who, by the way, just had an unbelievable season that we don't talk nearly enough about. You don't have a team that's great, that's loaded up with run stoppers, and you have to have that. You have to have that. And if you don't, one of these days somebody's going to run for 300 actual yards on you. I appreciate you, Dave. I appreciate everybody checking out Double Shot. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.